have no internet.
Welcome to Ellie and Lucas. Today we're going to talk to you guys about the different kinds of internet and phone plans that Germany has to offer and how they kind of relate to some of the common ways you deal with phone and internet plans in the US. But first we have an interesting story about our struggles when we first moved here.
When we first got off the plane, we needed to find phone cards so we could call in Germany, and we also needed some internet plans. One of those proved to be a little tougher than the others. The phone cards turned out to be super easy. So you can go to a DM or a Rossmann or any of your Drogerie marts or drugstores. They're the equivalent of Walgreens in the States. And you can find them there. You don't have to go to a Saturn or any kind of media mart or media store if you don't want to. They're available everywhere. It was super easy for us to find cards. They have many types of different cards. You can get ones that is cheap to call to other countries. So I got one where it costs 1 cent a minute to call the US or something like that. And Lucas got one that was more made for Germany. He went with Kongstar. And so he's going to tell you more about that now. But stick around till the end and we'll tell you about our crazy internet story.
Yeah, so like Ellie said, I went with Kongstar and she went with a simple SIM called Ortel, but there's all kinds of phone companies that you can go with in Germany. Just to list a few, and these are the more popular ones that you'll see have kiosks in the malls or even on popular streets, and those are Vodafone, Deutsche Telekom, O2, and then in my case I went with Kongstar. I don't know if they're super popular, but I think they have super cool deals and they work really well for me. And I mean, there's plus and minuses, and I'm not going to go into a whole boring spiel about all the stats of each company. But just some simple pluses if you're kind of looking and not sure what to do when you first come to Germany maybe. For me, getting a SIM card right away was one of the most important things, because I had no way to contact anyone from back home when we just moved here.
Or even you and me, if we got split up in the city, there was no way we could call each other.
It feels really weird when you're used to having a phone. Suddenly you have no contact to anybody. So that's why I went with Kongstar. I just wanted a SIM card that worked. I didn't even know I'd be sticking with them for a long time, but they have really cool cheap deals. I don't have to have a contract with them at all, and I just pay 20 euros a month for 10 gigs of data, which for me is super cool because I use the internet for everything.
I pay 10 because I'm a cheap wad like that.
But you can also, if you like contracts or you just like the deals that they have, you can go with Vodafone. They have a really cool plan where if you're under 28 years old, which would work really well for us actually, for 20 euros you can get a 20 gigabyte plan with all text and calling. It just stinks because you have to sign a contract, but if I'd known about it when we moved here, I would probably do that. That's quite a bit of value. And we've been here for 2 years, so why would I care? You can also do Deutsche Telekom. They also have age plans and stuff like that, but again, contracts, and they're a bit more pricey. And O2 Wireless is another one. It's the same deal with them. They have contracts. Pretty much everyone has contracts. So if you don't want contracts, go with the simple SIM companies like Kongstar. Especially if you're coming from the USA, not common at all, because in the US you almost never buy SIM cards by themselves. In fact, it's really hard. I used to work at a computer store and we had all of 2 different kinds of SIMs you could sell. It's just not common in the US, so it's helpful that it's common here.
Usually in the States, what people do is you go to Verizon or US Cellular and you buy a phone with them. They also give you a package contract deal, so you buy both of them and then you pay a certain a rate of money per month. But my parents, they would pay upwards of 100, 200 a month.
Yeah, it can be really
just
expensive.
For phone.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. And so after seeing that, one of my cousins switched to Ting Wireless in the States, and we like it a lot. So you can get minimum texting and calling and stuff, because we basically use WhatsApp, so we don't need texting. and it costs $10 a month, so the same as Kongstar, and they have SIMs. So I highly recommend Ting Wireless. They're great.
If you ever go to the US, hashtag no ad. Yeah, so those are like the different cell phone plans. And if you stuck through this far, you get to hear the special story about our internet nightmares.
Yeah. So when we arrived, we found it super easy to get SIM cards for our phones. But what wasn't so easy, unfortunately, and the phone plan I got didn't have a lot of like internet, so we had basically no internet. I don't know if you had your SIM card yet or not, but like you seemingly also didn't have internet. I don't know why.
Actually, small side tangent, I had my SIM card, but in Germany, you often, when you get a new SIM card with a new company,
yes.
You have to video chat with, in my case, it was like a part of the Deutsche Post. And basically they do it to confirm your identity. And I've actually seen some of you comment that this is basically a security thing to make sure people aren't just buying a bunch of SIM cards to do like fraudulent things or scams and stuff like that. Makes lots of sense. Super inconvenient if you don't have internet because you can't video call anybody. And so actually I didn't have a phone until we got internet.
So the story with that is the internet was a problem. So we had done some research beforehand and we had found out that 1&1, along with several other companies like Telekom, are some providers of internet services here in Germany. And keep in mind, at this point we had our house, we had the keys to the door, everything was fine. We had our phones, just no internet. In order to sign and like get into an internet contract, you needed to have a bank account. We didn't have a bank account yet, so we decided to walk up and down the main street of our like little neighborhood looking for banks that would give us an account with them. There were banks like National Bank, Deutsche Bank, there was Commerzbank, so those were several of the ones. And so we were wandering up and down the street and they all would say, no, like we can't help you, you don't have, you aren't,
we didn't have tax IDs because we didn't have visas yet because we were in the waiting list to go to the foreigner's office.
So we were waiting for the, to get our visas. And until then, they wouldn't approve us. So finally, we were walking up and down the street, and it was awful. And we would we would go in and buy a bread in a cafe that had a hotspot or Wi-Fi, and we'd specifically look for these cafes that had hotspots or Wi-Fi, just so we could go in and use their internet for 10 minutes, just to get like basic living things figured out here. It was crazy.
Literally anything. It's like emails. Like I was still figuring out some job things, so like. I would literally tell my future boss, like, hey, I'm probably not going to see any more of your emails today because I have to go back to my cave of a house and I'll be back at a bakery tomorrow to check again.
It was so ridiculous. So because we were running into a dead end there, I called the lady I had just been living with in Berlin while I was student teaching, and I asked her if she could help me because she has been living here for a while. She has a bank account, like maybe she could give us the initial like setup thing. And so she agreed, thankfully. So we set up our contract through her, or like we just had to use her as like to say that there was a bank account.
Yeah, she kind of like sponsored us for like the first month or two until we could like take the contract onto ourselves for like full.
So we decided to go with 1&1 or 1&1 for you German speakers, but there were some difficulties with this. Not because of them, but I think we were just unlucky.
So yeah, we finally had internet and we were like all ready to go, and then we'd be at home and our internet would just die randomly. We'd be fine and then it'd die, and then it'd come back in a minute, and then it'd be fine for a couple hours, and then it would die. And it would basically do this, and some days were really great days, it would be fine all day, and then other days it would die like every 10 minutes. It was beyond annoying, to put it simply. Terrible is more reality, but those are kind of first world problems. So fine. We like call 1&1, we're like, hey, we're having these problems. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll send out a technician. And they did. And the technician's like, oh, it's their cables. So we spent like a month having a brand new internet, like DSL cable, routed through our apartment. And we're like, okay, it's fine. And it worked like really well for a week, and then it broke. And I think we went through like 4 technicians or like technicers before we finally got it fixed. And the 4th guy comes in and goes, everything looks fine here. I'll be right back. And he walks up the street to like the neighborhood's like hub where everything comes together before distributing to the apartments. And it turns out literally our wire was slightly disconnected inside the box. He plugged it in and everything has been fine.
Ever since.
Yeah. So finally we got it fixed. But that like leads into like, did we have other choices and stuff like that? And for sure there are tons of other internet providers in Germany as well. And actually a lot of them are the same as the phone providers. They like do both. So you have 1&1 like we have. You can go with Vodafone, O2 or Telekom. And the thing that like I learned researching for this video is that Deutsche Telekom used to be like the government sponsored or like supported company for like internet and phone lines in Germany. And since then they become private, and that's not true, but their infrastructure still powers most of the country. And so companies like 1&1 have to piggyback off their pre-existing cables, and that's why you have problems like this, because these cables are so old and Deutsche Telekom isn't always so fast to upgrade them. And so you end up with like these breakages that no one can explain, and the companies start fighting back and forth to figure out who's to blame. It's ridiculous.
It was ridiculous.
But for us, we've been fairly happy with 1&1. You can get like up to a gigabit a second with them, but it's fairly expensive and you have to be in certain cities. For us, we have like 100 megabits per second download, which is more than enough for us. When we lived in the US, I think we were getting like 30 megabits per second at the time with Charter Spectrum, the service provider over there, and we paid like $30 US. So we pay now at worst the same, if not less, for a lot more. I can't tell you how excited I was when we first got here and I saw that. I was like, oh my goodness. You can also go with like Vodafone. They also have actually some really great like speeds for some of the better prices. They don't use DSL, which are phone lines, they use cable lines. So maybe you get better reliability with them, but they're fairly new with this. So I don't know how popular. You should definitely look at reviews. I'm not the official review person. I don't know. And like I said, you can go with O2 and Telecom also, but they have some of like the most pricey things. So if you're moving from the US, maybe start with 1&1 and Vodafone and go from there.
All right, so anyone that you know that's coming to Germany from probably anywhere, recommend them this video because it will help them get an insight to what phone and internet plans they'll need, or to what we found to be the best for us. We'd like to thank you so much for your support. We have like 1,315 subscribers.
1,315 subscribers.
We're so excited and we love having all of you there. What else? No other updates?
No, nothing big. Keep an eye out. I think next week we should have links to the VZ interview that we did. That should be super exciting. We might even make a whole video about it. And this is just me, I thought of it now. If any of you have like hiking or biking suggestions in North Rhine-Westphalia, leave them in the comments. We're getting ready to go outside. We want to do more outdoor videos for you and would love to check these places out. Okay, bye.
Mark. I think that's a detail.
Yeah, I know. They'll be cut out.
Okay. Yeah. Bye.
Ciao.